Ethan stood at the edge of the bustling alien marketplace, his heart pounding in excitement and nervousness. He had been sent to the planet Ziller as part of a diplomatic mission for Earth. His task was simple: gather information and build alliances with the different alien species. But Zillar was unlike any world he had ever visited. The air was thick with the scent of strange flowers, and the sky had a unique purple hue that made everything feel otherworldly. Ethan's team had been given a warm welcome by the Xylorian leaders, and he had the opportunity to observe some of the most fascinating species in the galaxy, but none were as captivating as the Elven. The Elven were known across the stars for their beauty and power. Tall and graceful, their skin shimmered like polished stone. They had piercing eyes that glowed faintly in the dark, and their presence alone seemed to command respect. The Alvin didn't speak much with other species, preferring to keep to themselves. But the few times they did engage with others, their words were filled with wisdom and mystery. Ethan had read about them in his training, but seeing them in person was something entirely different. They were perfect, almost too perfect. Among the Alvin, there was one who caught his attention more than any other. Her name was Lyra. Ethan first saw Lyra during a formal gathering in one of the city's grand halls. The room was filled with diplomats, scientists, and representatives from various species. But as soon as Lyra entered, all eyes turned to her. She moved with grace, her long silver hair flowing behind her like a waterfall. Her skin was a rich, glowing shade of lavender, and her sharp features were both beautiful and intimidating. It was clear that she was someone important, someone to be respected. But it wasn't just her appearance that captivated Ethan. It was the way she carried herself, her confidence, her power, her silence. Ethan had seen many beautiful women in his life, but there was something different about Lyra. Her beauty wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, something that seemed to radiate from her very being. It was as if she wasn't just a woman. She was a force of nature. After the gathering, Ethan found himself unable to stop thinking about her. He tried to focus on his duties, meeting with other species and gathering information, but his thoughts kept returning to Lyra. He couldn't help it. There was something about her that pulled him in, something mysterious and untouchable. He wanted to learn more about her, but he also knew that the Alvin were known for their strict customs. One day, as Ethan walked through the city's bustling streets, he spotted her again. This time she was alone, walking through a quiet park. On the outskirts of the city, her head was held high, and her eyes seemed to scan the surroundings with a quiet intensity. Ethan couldn't resist. He walked up to her, trying to act casual, but his heart was racing. "Excuse me," he said, his voice slightly shaking. I just wanted to say that you are unlike anyone I've ever seen." Lyra turned her gaze to him. Her eyes, glowing softly, locked onto his. For a moment, Ethan felt as though she could see straight into his soul. It was unnerving, but also exhilarating. "Look all you want, human." Lyra's voice was calm, yet powerful. "But touching me comes with consequences." Ethan froze. Hers hung in the air, and for a moment he wasn't sure if he had heard her correctly. The tone of her voice was icy, but there was something more, something that made him feel small, like he had just stepped into a world where he didn't belong. "I'm sorry," Ethan stammered, feeling embarrassed. "I didn't mean to offend you." Lyra didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, looking at him with those glowing eyes. Ethan couldn't help but feel like he was being measured, evaluated. Finally, she spoke again, but this time her voice was softer, almost like she was explaining something he should already know. "The Alvin are not like your people," she said. "We have boundaries, and when those boundaries are crossed, there are consequences. You do not understand what it means to touch someone like me." Ethan was taken aback. He had never met anyone who spoke with such authority. His curiosity got the better of him, and he couldn't stop himself from asking, "What do you mean by that? What would happen if I touched you?" Lyra's gaze intensified. And for a moment, Ethan wondered if he had made a mistake by asking, but she didn't seem angry. Instead, she simply raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a small, knowing smile. "You will learn soon enough," she said cryptically. "But for now, remember this, some things are not meant for humans to understand." With that, She turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing, drifting back to Lyra. He wanted to know more. About her, to understand why she had spoken to him the way she had. One evening, as Ethan walked back to his quarters after a long day of meetings, he found himself walking down the same street where he had first seen Lyra. The air was cool, and the distant hum of the city surrounded him. He knew it was foolish, but he couldn't help himself. He glanced around, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. To his surprise, he saw her ahead, standing alone in the park once again. This time, she wasn't walking. She stood still, looking up at the sky. The soft glow of the purple sunset made her look almost ethereal, like she wasn't entirely a part of this world. Ethan hesitated. Part of him wanted to turn around and leave, to respect her space. But another part of him, the part that was still drawn to her, pushed him forward. He approached slowly, trying to be as quiet as possible. He didn't want to disturb her, but he couldn't stop the pull he felt toward her. When he was close enough, he spoke softly, not wanting to startle her. "Lyra," he said, his voice hesitant. I wanted to apologize for earlier. I didn't mean to overstep my boundaries. I didn't understand what you meant, but I do now. I won't cross any lines again." Lyra turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, her glowing eyes. Studying him carefully, she said nothing at first, just standing there in silence, as if she was deciding something. Ethan couldn't read her, couldn't figure out what she was thinking. The tension between them was thick, and it made him feel both anxious and strangely alive. "You misunderstand, human," Lyra finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. "It's not about your apology. It's about your actions. You can look all you want, but if you keep pressing the boundaries, you will learn that some things are not meant to be touched." Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. There it was. Again the same warning, but this time it sounded even more serious. He couldn't help but ask, his voice barely above a whisper, "What happens if I do touch you? What are these consequences you keep talking about?" Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. She took a step closer to him, but not too close. There was a distance between them that Ethan could feel. It wasn't just physical, it was something more. "The consequences are not something you can understand, human," Lyra said, her tone soft but full of an undeniable power. "You are not like us. Your kind doesn't know what it means to truly respect a boundary. If you cross it, you will not just be crossing a line. You will be inviting something you cannot control." Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. What could she mean by that? He had never felt such a strong, almost unexplainable energy from someone before. It wasn't just her beauty, it was something deeper, something powerful that seemed to flow from her very being. But Ethan wasn't one to back down easily. His curiosity had always pushed him to seek answers, even when things seemed impossible. He wanted to know more about Lyra, about the Alvin, about what made them so different from the rest of the galaxy. "I don't understand," he admitted, stepping slightly closer, but still keeping a respectful distance. "I've never met anyone like you. Your power, your presence, it's unlike anything I've ever felt. What is it that makes you so different?" Lyra studied him for a moment before speaking again. "It's not something you can learn quickly. The Alvin are ancient. We are bound by forces that even we do not fully understand. Our power comes from our connection to the stars, to the energy that flows through the universe. It is a part of us, and it is a part of you, too, in a way. You are not ready to understand it." Ethan was silent for a long time, processing her words. He had read about the Alvin's connection to the cosmos, their ancient wisdom, but hearing it from her made it feel real, like it was something more than just stories. She wasn't just an alien diplomat. She was something far beyond that. Something ... otherworldly. "I just wanted to know you better," Ethan said quietly, his voice full of sincerity. "I didn't mean to offend you." Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time, Ethan saw a hint of something more, something not as cold. Compassion, maybe? Or understanding? It was hard to tell. "You will learn, human," she said, her voice gentler now. "But know this, there is no going back once you have crossed this line. The consequences will change you, and you will never be the same." Ethan nodded slowly, realizing that Lyra was right. He wasn't prepared for whatever it was she had hinted at. But his curiosity, his desire to understand, pushed him forward. He wasn't ready to walk away yet. "I'll be careful," he promised. "But I still want to understand." Lyra smiled, a small, knowing smile, and then turned away, disappearing. Into the shadows of the park? Ethan stood there for a moment, his mind racing. There was so much more to Lyra, and to the Alvin, than he could possibly comprehend. But one thing was clear: he had just stepped into a world where the Binari E's were much stronger than he had ever imagined, and now there was no turning back. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty for Ethan. His mind was always on Lyra, her words echoed in his thoughts. She had warned him about crossing boundaries, but he couldn't stop wondering what those consequences really meant. The more he thought about it, the more his curiosity grew. He had always prided himself on being able to understand people, to figure out what made them tick. But Lyra was different. She was an enigma, and the more he tried to make sense of her, the more elusive she became. Ethan's diplomatic duties kept him busy. But whenever he found a free moment, he would find himself wandering the streets of the alien city, hoping for another chance encounter with her. He didn't know why, but there was something about her that he couldn't shake off. He wanted to know more about her, to understand why she had such a hold on him. One afternoon, while visiting a nearby market, Ethan caught sight of Lyra again. She was standing in front of a stall, inspecting some of the goods. This time, she wasn't alone. Several other Alvin were with her, engaged in conversation. Ethan hesitated, unsure if he should approach, but something inside him urged him to go forward. He walked slowly toward her, trying to stay out of sight, but Lyra's sharp eyes seemed to spot him from across the market. She turned her head just slightly, her gaze locking onto his. For a moment, their eyes met, and Ethan felt a strange pull, as if she were beckoning him without a word. He stopped in his tracks, unsure of what to do next. Lyra gave a small nod, acknowledging him, but didn't move toward him. Instead, she continued her conversation with the others, as if he didn't exist. Ethan stood there for a moment, confused. Was this some kin? Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her glowing eyes searching his face as if weighing his sincerity. Ethan shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. He felt like she could see right through him, as if she knew what he was really thinking. "Your people are so quick to seek answers," Lyra said finally. "But some answers are not meant for you. You think you can understand our ways, but you are not like us. Consequences are not something you can prepare for, Ethan. They will change you." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine at the way she said his name, as if she had known him for a long time. He had been warned. He had been told to stay away, to respect her boundaries. But all he could think about was crossing that line. "What exactly will happen?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra took a step closer, her presence overwhelming. "If you touch me, you will awaken something inside yourself. You will be bound to me, to the Alvin, in ways you cannot understand. You will feel our power, our history, and our connection to the stars. Yet. But it will not be without a price. You will be changed, Ethan, and you will never go back to the way you were." Ethan could feel the weight of her words, but his curiosity pushed him forward. He had to know. He had to understand. "I'm not afraid of change," he said, more to himself than to her. "I need to know what this is, what you are." Lyra's eyes softened, but only for a moment. "You think you can handle it?" she said. "But once you've crossed that line, there's no going back. You'll be tied to us forever. We'll feel the weight of our power every day. It will shape you, mold you, and it will never let you go." Ethan felt a sense of excitement mixed with fear. He had never felt anything like this before. The idea of being connected to something so ancient, so powerful, was intoxicating. He didn't know what would happen if he touched her, but he couldn't resist the pull. Had to know. He had to understand her. "I don't care about the consequences," he said, his voice filled with determination. "I just want to understand. I want to know what it's like to be connected to something greater." Lyra stood silently for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then, without warning, she reached out and placed her hand on his arm. The moment her fingers made contact with his skin, Ethan felt a surge of energy course through his body. It was as if a floodgate had opened, and he was being pulled into something vast and unfathomable. His heart raced, his mind spinning. He saw flashes of images, stars, galaxies, ancient symbols, and the faces of people he didn't know. It was overwhelming, like being submerged in a sea of knowledge and power, and then, as quickly as it had come, the sensation was gone. Ethan stumbled back, his body trembling. He looked at Lyra, his eyes wide with shock and wonder. "You've crossed the line, Ethan," she said quietly. "You are no longer the same." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind still reeling from the experience. He had done it. He had touched her. And now he was bound to her in a way he couldn't explain. "Now you will learn what it truly means to be connected to the Alvin," Lyra said, her voice calm but filled with an undeniable power. "And you will never be the same." Ethan stood there, still reeling from the strange and overwhelming feeling that had washed over him when Lyra touched him. His heart was pounding and his body trembled, though he couldn't explain why. The world around him seemed different, as though he had just woken up from a dream, but the dream was now part of his reality. The images, the sensations, the feelings, they were still vivid in his mind. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he could sense Lyra's presence, like a constant pull. It was as if he had been changed in ways he couldn't yet understand. Lyra watched him, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak, allowing the silence to stretch between them, thick with the weight of the moment. Ethan didn't know what to say. What could he say? He had crossed a line, and now he was bound to the Elven in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. He had felt their power, their history, their connection to the stars, but it wasn't just a gift. It was a responsibility, a burden. And it was a part of him now. "What did you do to me?" Ethan finally asked, his voice shaky, yet filled with a desperate need to understand. He had to know what had just happened. Lyra's eyes softened slightly, but there was no smile, no comfort in her gaze. Instead, there was a quiet, undeniable strength. I didn't do anything to you," she said. "You did this to yourself. You wanted to understand, and now you do. But understand this. Knowledge and power come with a price. You've opened a door you cannot close." Ethan's mind raced as he tried to process her words. What did she mean? What was this price she was talking about? His thoughts were jumbled, but one thing was clear. He had crossed into something far deeper than he had ever imagined. "I didn't know," he whispered, feeling a mix of fear and awe. "I didn't know what this would mean." "That's why you weren't ready," Lyra replied, her voice calm yet firm. "No one is ready for the full weight of the Alvin's power. No one can understand it until they experience it themselves. Now that you have, you will never be the same." Ethan felt a pang of regret. He'd been so curious, so eager to understand. But now, standing before Lyra, he realized that he had underestimated the cost. What had seemed like a simple touch, a moment of curiosity, was now something far more complicated. He'd opened himself up to the Alvin's power, and he didn't know how to undo it. "You don't have to be afraid," Lyra said, her voice softer now. "You are not the first human to seek our knowledge, but you are the first to truly understand what it means to be connected to us. Most of your kind would never have dared to go this far." Ethan looked at her, still unsure of what to make. Of her words? Was this a blessing? A curse? The power he had felt was real, and it was intoxicating, but it also terrified him. He could still feel the pull of the Alvin, as though their essence was now intertwined with his own. "I didn't ask for this," Ethan said quietly, feeling the weight of his decision pressing down on him. "I didn't know what I was getting into." Lyra nodded. "Few do. But now that you're here, you must learn how to control what you've taken. The Alvin are not easily understood. Our power is not something that can be wielded carelessly. It is a part of the universe itself, and it flows through us. It has shaped our race, and now it will shape you." Ethan took a step back, trying to make sense of everything. He had never imagined that his curiosity would lead him to this point. He had come to Ziller to learn, to build alliances, but now he had stumbled into something much bigger than he could have ever prepared for. He wasn't just a human diplomat anymore. It was now something different, something connected to the Alvin in ways that were beyond his comprehension. "What do I do now?" Ethan asked, his voice heavy with uncertainty. "How do I live with this?" Lyra's gaze softened, and for the first time, Ethan saw a hint of something close to sympathy in her eyes. "You must learn to live with it," she said. "You cannot run from what you've become. You must accept it, embrace it, and learn to control it. But be warned, if you do not, the consequences will be far worse than anything you could imagine." Ethan nodded slowly, though he wasn't sure if he truly understood what she meant. He felt like he had just stepped into a new world, one that was both fascinating and frightening. The Alvin's power, their connection to the universe, was now a part of him. He didn't know if he was ready for it. "I'll try," he said quietly, "but I don't know if I can see." "Control something like this. You don't have to do it alone," Lyra replied. "We will guide you, but you must listen, learn, and respect the power that now flows through you. The Alvin are not a race to be taken lightly. We are ancient, and our strength is vast. You will need every bit of that strength to survive the path you've chosen." Ethan felt a surge of determination rising within him. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with it. He had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. But he wasn't going to give up. He would learn to control the power he had been given, no matter what it took. He had to. "Teach me," Ethan said, his voice filled with resolve. "I want to learn. I want to understand." Lyra studied him for a moment before nodding. "Very well. But remember, human, this path is not for the faint of heart. You must be strong, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. The power you now possess will test you. It will challenge you. But if you are strong enough, you will become something more than you ever imagined." With that, Lyra turned and began to walk away, leaving Ethan standing there, his heart racing. With anticipation and fear, he had crossed the line, and now he would have to face the consequences. But no matter what, he was ready to learn. The days following his encounter with Lyra were filled with strange experiences for Ethan. The power that she had unlocked within him wasn't something he could easily control. He could feel it like a current running through his veins, a constant hum in the background of his thoughts. Every time he focused, it was there, waiting to be tapped into. But he had no idea how to control it. Ethan spent much of his time walking through the city, trying to clear his mind and understand what was happening to him. His interactions with the Alvin had always felt distant before, but now everything felt different. He could sense the energy around him more acutely. Spoke with others, he could feel their emotions more clearly. It was as though the world had grown sharper, more alive, protecting anyone. He stood up and walked over to the door, opening it cautiously. Lyra stood there, her gaze calm and unreadable. "We need to talk," she said simply. Ethan stepped aside. "To let her in? About what?" he asked, though he had a feeling he knew what was coming. Lyra walked in without a word, her presence filling the room. Ethan couldn't help but feel that familiar pull, that strange connection that he had felt ever since he touched her. He had crossed a line, and now he was bound to her in a way he couldn't explain. "I told you that there would be consequences," Lyra said, her voice steady. "And now you are beginning to understand what that means." Ethan nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. "I feel it," he admitted. "I can sense everything more clearly. It's like the world has become ... sharper. But I don't know how to control it. I don't know what to do with this power." Lyra studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "You have to learn to control it, Ethan. The power you've tapped into is not something that can be ignored. It's a part of you now. And if you don't learn how to control it, it will control you." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. At the thought, "What do you mean? What happens if I can't control it?" "If you can't control it," Lyra replied, "the consequences will be far worse than anything you could imagine. The Alvin's power is tied to the universe itself. It's not something that can be wielded by just anyone. And if you try to use it without understanding it, it will consume you." Ethan swallowed hard. The weight of Lyra's words settled heavily on him. He had wanted to understand, wanted to connect with the Alvin. But now he realized that he had stepped into something much bigger than he had ever imagined. He wasn't just dealing with a powerful race, he was dealing with a force of nature. "What do I do?" he asked, his voice tinged with desperation. "How do I learn to control it?" Lyra's gaze softened slightly, and for the first time, Ethan saw a hint of sympathy in her eyes. "You must first learn to understand yourself," she said. "You have to find balance within. The power you've unlocked is not just something outside of you. It's a reflection of your own inner strength. You must learn to harness it, to accept it, and to control it. Only then will you be able to fully understand what it means to be connected to the Alvin." Ethan nodded slowly, taking in her words. He could feel the truth in them, but it wasn't easy to accept. He'd always thought of himself as in control. But now he was beginning to realize just how little control he truly had. The power inside him was both exhilarating and terrifying. He wanted to learn, wanted to understand, but there was so much he didn't know. Lyra stepped closer, her presence calming in a way that Ethan couldn't explain. "The Alvin are not just a race," she said. "We are a reflection of the universe. Itself, our power is tied to the stars, to the energy that flows through everything. And now you are connected to that energy. You must learn to embrace it, not fight it. It is a part of you." Ethan looked at her, his mind racing. He had always been fascinated by the stars, by the mysteries of the universe, but now it felt as though those mysteries were becoming a part of him. He could feel the energy coursing through his body, just beneath the surface, waiting to be tapped into. It was both overwhelming and awe-inspiring. "How do I begin?" he asked, his voice steady with determination. "You will begin by learning to quiet your mind," Lyra said. "The power inside you can only be controlled when you are at peace. If you allow fear and doubt to take over, you will lose yourself. You must learn to trust yourself and the power within you." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of resolve settle within him. He didn't know how long it would take or what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain: he was not going to back down. He had crossed the line, and now he would learn to control the power that came with it. No matter what it took. "I'm ready," he said quietly. "Teach me." Lyra gave him a small nod, her expression softening. "Very well, Ethan. But remember, this path is not an easy one. You must be strong, both in mind and in spirit. The power you now carry is a gift, but it is also a test. And only those who are truly worthy will be able to master it." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. But for the first time since he had touched Lyra, he felt ready. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he was ready to face it head-on. The days that followed were both difficult and enlightening for Ethan. He had tried to follow Lyra's advice, to quiet his mind and embrace the power flowing through him. But the task was far harder than he had imagined. Every time he tried to focus, the energy inside him seemed to grow restless, urging him to do something, anything. It was as if the power within him had a will of its own, pulling him in different directions, demanding his attention. Ethan spent hours meditating, trying to control the strange sensation that filled him. At first, he felt a deep sense of calm wash over him, a quiet stillness that seemed to reach into his very soul. But that calm never lasted long. Soon, his thoughts would wander, doubts and fears creeping in, and the power would surge, overwhelming. Him, with its intensity, was a constant battle between the calm and the chaos, between the peace he longed for and the power that threatened to consume him. One morning, after another long and exhausting session, Ethan collapsed onto his bed, his body aching from the strain. He had tried everything he could think of to master the power, but it felt like the more he tried to control it, the more it slipped out of his grasp. He couldn't help but feel frustrated. It was as if he was constantly chasing something just out of reach, no matter how hard he tried. "Why is this so hard?" he muttered to himself, staring up at the ceiling. "Why can't I just understand it? Why can't I just make it stop?" The door to his quarters creaked open, and Lyra stepped inside. Ethan didn't even need to look up to know it was her. Her presence filled the room like a calm breeze, always steady and unwavering. "You're struggling," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "I can feel it." Ethan sat up slowly, his face weary. I don't know what's wrong with me, he admitted. I've been trying, but every time I think I'm close to understanding it, the power just overwhelms me. I can't control it. Lyra walked over to him, her expression unreadable. The power you've tapped into is not something that can be controlled easily. It is a part of you now, but it is also a part of something much bigger, something ancient. You cannot simply force it to obey. You must learn to let it flow, to become one with it. Ethan shook his head in frustration. I've tried to let it flow, but every time I do, it feels like it's taking over. I don't know how to make it stop. I don't know how to make it calm. Lyra's eyes softened slightly, and she knelt down beside him. The power is not your enemy, Ethan. It is a part of the universe itself. It is your connection to everything, the stars, the planets, the energy that flows through all things. But it is not something to be feared. It is something to be understood. Ethan looked at her, his brow furrowed. Then why does it feel so dangerous? Why does it feel like it's pushing me to do things I'm not ready for? Lyra studied him for a moment before speaking. Because you are still trying to control it. You are fighting against it. When you try to force something, it becomes a struggle. But when you learn to trust it, to trust yourself, you will find that the power will not control you. You will control it. But you cannot control something you do not true. St. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to process her words. It made sense, in a way. He had been trying to force the power into submission, trying to bend it to his will. But maybe that was the wrong approach. Maybe he needed to stop fighting. It had learned to accept it for what it was. Okay, he said slowly. I'll try. I'll stop trying to force it. Lyra nodded, her eyes still calm. Good. But remember, Ethan, this is not something you can rush. You must be patient. The power inside you will not be tamed overnight. It will take time, effort, and trust. But if you keep fighting against it, you will only make it harder for yourself. Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. For the first time in days, he felt like he might actually have a chance to get through this. It wouldn't be easy. But maybe he could finally learn to accept the power inside him. Over the next few days, Ethan focused on Lyra's advice, spent time each day meditating, but this time, he didn't try to force the power into submission. Instead, he focused on breathing deeply, on letting the energy flow through him without resistance. It wasn't easy at first. His mind would wander, and the power would surge in response, threatening to overwhelm him. But he didn't fight it. He simply let it be. He let the power flow through him, trusting that it would eventually find its place. It wasn't an instant change, but over time, Ethan began to feel a shift. The power that once felt like a burden began to feel like a part of him. It was still there, always present, but now it didn't overwhelm him. Instead, he could feel its presence in the background, like a steady hum in the distance. It was a constant reminder of the connection he now shared with the Alvin and with the universe itself. One evening, as Ethan sat by the window, watching the stars outside, he realized something. Power inside him wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. And while he still didn't fully understand it, he had taken the first step in learning to control it. He wasn't alone in this anymore. The Alvin were there to guide him, and he was beginning to trust himself. The journey wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face whatever came next. Lyra had been patient with him, guiding him through the process. Her presence was still a constant reminder of the power he carried, but she was no longer a distant figure. She had become a mentor, someone who helped him navigate the complexities of the energy that flowed through him. They had spent hours together, talking about the Alvin's history, their connection to the stars, and the role Ethan now played in this larger cosmic picture. One afternoon, as Ethan was practicing some of the techniques Lyra had taught him, there was a soft knock. On the door, he glanced up, surprised to see her standing in the doorway, her expression calm but serious. "Are you ready?" she asked. Ethan nodded, wiping his hands on his pants. "Ready for what?" "To continue your training," Lyra said, stepping into the room. "You've made great progress, but now it's time to test your abilities." Ethan felt a surge of nervous energy. "What do you mean by test my abilities?" Lyra's eyes sparkled with a hint of amusement. Learn to control the power within you, but now you need to see if you can use it. We will go to the training grounds. There, you will face a challenge. Ethan stood up, feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He had come a long way, but he still didn't feel completely confident in his abilities. But he trusted Lyra. If she believed he was ready, then he had to be. "All right," he said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do it." Lyra led Ethan to the training grounds, a vast open space surrounded by tall alien trees and strange glowing plants. The air here felt different, charged with an energy that seemed to resonate with the power inside him. It was as though the very environment was alive, connected to the same forces he had learned to harness. "This is where we test your control," Lyra explained as they reached the center of the training area. "You've learned to calm the energy inside you, but now you must learn how to direct it. You'll need to focus and use the power to move objects, shape the energy around you." Ethan nodded, trying to steady his nerves. He had practiced the basic techniques, but this was different. This was a real test. Lyra stood a few feet away, her eyes focused on him. "I will create an obstacle. Your task is to move it using your power. Focus, Ethan. Don't let your doubts control you." Ethan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He could feel the familiar hum of energy inside him, but this time, it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt natural. He focused on it, visualizing the energy flowing through his body, through his hands. He imagined the object he was meant to move, a large rock in the distance, rising into the air. For a moment, nothing happened. He felt frustration beginning to rise within him, but then he remembered Lyra's words. "Trust yourself." He exhaled slowly and tried again, focusing all his energy on the task at hand. Suddenly, the rock began to shift, slowly at first, and then faster, as the power within him responded to his focus. Ethan's eyes widened as the rock hovered a few inches off the ground. He could feel the strain, but he kept his concentration, guiding the rock with his mind. It floated higher, spinning in the air as though it were weightless. Lyra watched him with a steady gaze, her expression unreadable. Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment flood through him. He had controlled the power and used it as Lyra had instructed. But then Lyra raised her hand, and the rock suddenly dropped to the ground with a heavy thud. Ethan blinked in surprise, but she wasn't finished yet. "Good," she said. "Try to keep it floating for longer. Test your endurance." Ethan nodded, focusing again. This time he summoned the energy with greater confidence. He could feel the rock lifting once more, and this time he pushed his concentration further, keeping the rock hovering in the air. It was harder than before, but he focused on his breathing, on maintaining a calm mind. Slowly, the rock rose higher and stayed in the air longer. Minutes passed. The rock remained suspended, but Ethan's body began to feel the strain. His arms shook slightly and sweat beaded on his forehead. But he didn't let go. He kept his focus. He wasn't going to let his doubts control him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ethan gently lowered the rock back to the ground. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Lyra approached him, her expression unchanged. "Well done, Ethan," she said simply. "You've passed the test." Ethan looked at her, his chest still heaving from the effort. "Did it?" Lyra nodded. "You did. But remember, this is just the beginning. You've learned to control the power, but now you must learn how to use it for the greater good. This is the true test." Ethan's heart swelled with a mix of pride and determination. He had come a long way, and he was ready to face whatever came next. The power was still a part of him, but now he understood it. And with Lyra's guidance, he knew he would continue to grow stronger. The journey wasn't over. But for the first time, Ethan felt ready for whatever the future held.